Okay, widening our horizon. Thank you for coming at this late time in the afternoon. We'll see if we can keep you engaged here. So how do you widen your horizon? I love that question, because the whole atrophy cycle and this darkness and the trouble and all these things that we talked about yesterday, they make you shrink. Dick said this morning, but they make you sort of shrink your horizon. They make you contract, constrict. They make you grasp things and hold on and get attached. So the opposite of that is to widen. So Dick picks these topics like 8 or 9 months ago, and you have no idea what he's talking about. And then you go, oh, Dick, this is like amazing. How did you do this? So it's almost like he's listening to the same intelligence or something. I don't know. And there's no time in that. I mean, the guy, this is good. So we addressed one approach to this. Some of you were in the breakout with me yesterday in relation to getting really clear on our intention. So to widen our horizon, it's going to be really important to have a very clear sense of intention or purpose. Like, what do you want in life? That type of intention. Yesterday in the breakout, we talked about what is your single necessity. If you weren't in the breakout with me and you'd like the 2 handouts, they're back there by the books. There's a whole stack of them. You can pick them up later on. So without clarity in this area, it's really, I'm speaking to the choir here, it's really easy to get scattered and distracted. Because we just kind of do whatever we do. There's not a real sense of, it feels kind of can feel overwhelming and directionless. Can fall into sloth. So to me, it's much easier when I have a very clear sense of purpose to be able to make progress and to stay in the center aisle. There's less sort of wandering with all my well-intentioned detours. So to me, this widening, this opening is really an opening to grace. It's an opening to the divine. So questions are like, what is your deepest fire? When you open to grace, when you open to the divine, what lights you up? What just gets you going? What just, yes. Every day, if that was going on, like when I was in my 30s, used to be snowboarding every day. That would get me going. Spirituality was good, but snowboarding was like... Now I've shifted the 2. Lobsters first, then snowboarding, then... No, just kidding. So another way to think about it is, what are you being called to do, to be, if you will? What is that calling? Not where are you needed, but where are you called? To think about career, we don't think about where we're needed. We think about where we're called. Huge topic. That is, you are somebody obviously other than something stuck in the atrophy cycle. I know we all can relate to that because that comes and goes, but that's what it does. It comes and goes. That's not who we are. So the question is, are we open to live from a new standpoint? We're getting that message a lot this week. It's throughout the New Testament, and it's, to me, all the spiritual teachers that I've been exploring, that's the game. So for me, I begin every day with my purpose. I've thought about it for years, for about 30 plus years, and it's refined over the years. It continues to unfold, because your purpose is not who you are, it points to who you are. Because if your purpose changed, that means you change. But your identity doesn't change. It unfolds. Your awareness of it unfolds. So every day I dwell in my purpose. I relax into it. I open to it. And I ask grace, what do you want me to see? Because for me, the purpose can take us it's a huge tool for taking us out of atrophy into the sense of mastery, which is where we're going today, and then on to awakening, which is where we're going to talk about tomorrow, where the ego literally drops away. So here's my purpose. I am this moment. Sometimes I just stop there because that's enough. But I am seeing and being the consciousness of love. Sometimes the whole morning, that's enough. I am this moment seeing and being the consciousness of love. What am I doing in that space? Well, I'm surrendering to grace, listening to grace, and receiving grace. So surrendering, listening, and receiving the divine here and now. And what happens typically? Grace releases egoing, I'll define that in a second, dissolves self-concepts, limited self-concepts, limited separate sense of self, and reveals reality as one infinite I am. Egoing to me is we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but it's the desire for something to be different than it is. I don't like this movie, and I'm really upset that we're watching this movie again, and I'm in it, or whatever. I mean, it's just a distraction. It's a mental distraction that takes us away from the divine order. So the egoing is this big wish, it's got to be different, it's got to be different. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. So this is literally what I dwell with each day at various different times, whenever it pops up. But I start my day every day with this. Back in May, late May, I went to a 7-day silent retreat with Adyashanti up at Lake Tahoe. And we spent literally 7 days in silence, as in no talking, as in no electronics, no reading, just in silence. You ate in silence, you went for walks. There were 40-minute periods of just sitting in silence. He would talk to us occasionally, and he would answer questions if you wanted to get up. But there were like 300 people there. And so literally for 7 days, I was completely in silence. But the reason I bring that up is because every day I would start from this premise. Every single one of those 38 40-minute silent periods sitting by myself, sitting quiet, I would start from some aspect of this. I shared a room with Annie, my wife, who, this was my fourth one. It was the first time she attended. And amazingly, we didn't talk the entire time also. We were both committed to that, and it was incredible. It was absolutely amazing. So as I mentioned, the opposite of closing, contracting, constricting, and clutching, that's what mastery is about. It's the opposite of that. The atrophy cycle is all about this closing down. That's what the human mind does when it's afraid. You can just sort of feel, it just closes down physically, mentally, to avoid pain when it's afraid. It resists the now and either regrets the past or past fears, or it's just fantasizing about the future, but it's away from the now. My sense is that this is not what prophets do. I'm not saying they don't deal with this stuff, but that's not where they hang out. And I really believe that each one of us is a prophet. Prophets have the ability to listen to the divine, hear that voice, and act in accord with that order. We all have that. We all have prophet consciousness. They hear the still small voice, which in the Hebrew, is translated the sound of gentle stillness. The still small voice in the Hebrew is translated the sound of gentle stillness. So we can be obedient to what grace is telling us. So what is the prophet in you being called to be? How would the prophet show up? So what I want to share with you is an excerpt from the Message Bible. So Eugene Peterson, in his preface to the prophets, which is Isaiah through Malachi, he has about 3 pages, and I've taken about 4.5 paragraphs, describing what a prophet is. So anybody can get this if you have the Message Bible. But I just want to read it to you because to me it speaks to me. See if it speaks to your authentic heart. Here's what he says. Everyone more or less believes in God. But most of us do our best to keep God on the margins of our lives, or failing that, refashion God to suit our convenience. Remember, if there's anything you can relate to in what I'm saying, just put if you want to keep your hand up the entire time, that's fine. Or I see a few legs up as well. Prophets insist that God is the sovereign center, not off in the wings awaiting our beck and call. And prophets insist that we deal with God as God reveals himself. This is huge. Not as we imagine him to be. It's not this conceptual, floaty, abstract thing. The prophets purge our imagination of this world's assumptions on how life is lived and what counts in life. Over and over again, God uses these prophets, uses us, to separate his people from the cultures in which they live. Been hearing a lot about that this week. Putting them back on the path, the center aisle, of simple faith and obedience and worship in defiance of all that the world admires and rewards. We were just hearing about that. Just the way Maddie ended the talk there was talking about that. Prophets train us in discerning the difference between the ways of the world and the ways of the gospel, keeping us present to the presence of God. When you're in your zone, that's where you are. You're present to the presence of God. That's prophet consciousness. So for a prophet, for a people who are accustomed to fitting God into their lives, the prophets are hard to take and easy to dismiss. The God of whom the prophets speak is too large to fit into our lives. The God of whom the prophets speak is far too large to fit into our lives. If we want anything to do with God, we have to fit into him. Game changer. That's my word, he didn't say that. They contend, prophets, that everything, absolutely, sounds like Paul, absolutely everything takes place on sacred ground. God has something to say about every aspect of our lives, the way we feel and act in the so-called privacy of our hearts and homes, the way we make money, the way we spend it, the politics we embrace, the wars we fight, the catastrophes we endure, the people we hurt, and the people we help. And the last thing that I'll read from what he said, prophets make it impossible to make detours around God. Prophets make it impossible to make detours around God. Their words and visions penetrate the illusions with which we cocoon ourselves from reality. I love his language, I just can't say it, but they shake us out of our old conventional habits of small-mindedness, of trivializing God gossip, and set us on our feet, I love this, in wonder and obedience and worship. So as we widen our horizon today, let's open to being prophets. That's what we are, so let's just open to that. The nature of consciousness, I guess it's pretty obvious, but is that it has no borders. Consciousness has no borders. We just put these little walls and these little tiny perspectives, but consciousness is borderless. It's infinite. Not many of us consciously live in that space. We tend to live in a world that's bordered by our attachments. And most of our attachments come from what we've contracted around, as we've been talking about, or what we concentrate on. And the whole point of that is to keep us in our comfort zone. That's not where prophets live. Here's an amazing quote to me by J.B. Phillips, who translated the New Testament into modern English. This is from his book called The Ring of Truth. For 17 years, I believe it was, that he was translating into the New Testament, he recorded every time something rang true to him in like heart space in a huge way, and then writes this entire book about what really rings true in his deep, humble exploration of it. Fascinating book. This is one of the things that he felt. Watch out. It's only when we're going in more or less the same direction as the devil that we are conscious of no opposition at all. I hate it when that happens. I know. Oh, gosh. Thank you for not swearing. It's only, and this is not saying that we have to be in pain and we have to have suffering all the time, but see if you can find this. See if you can find a place for this. To me, it's saying that we need to be conscious, awake, aware, and going for it, striving, going for it. That's conscious, being conscious. Because that's typically not what we seek. We kind of seek the nirvana, the bliss, the no challenges. Just let me hit the thermals and soar. So our comfort zones are created by what we have chosen that we like, what makes us feel good, or by what we're avoiding, what we're afraid of or brings us pain. I think of that as a cage. If I'm just doing what I like and I'm avoiding all pain or all challenges, that's really just a cage. It might be a happy cage for a while, but it's just a cage. It's our self-chosen world that keeps us locked in duality and limitation. Our comfort zones are how we stay stuck. So, big question, widening our horizons, how do we break out of our comfort zones? I'm going to give you an example from a buddy of Natalie's and a buddy of mine as well. His name's Duncan, happens to be our son. And this is when he was a freshman at Principia College, so 5 years ago. And he participated in cross country. Let me just get the... So here he is, if I have this lined up right. As a freshman. What are you laughing about? The mohawk? You like the mohawk? I tried to have a mohawk for the conference, but it didn't. It's not working? It is for me. Jeez, what do you mean it's not working? Put that on the assessment. Bad mohawk. So I'm going to read to you what he wrote. This is what he said. My biggest demonstration, this is freshman year, so he's 18, 5 years ago, five and a half. This season came in what's called the cowbell, which is a 3.5 race, cross country this is, 3.1 mile race actually. One of my racing shoes began to rub my heel pretty badly, and it became very uncomfortable. So here he is at the start. So this is him right there. So he's at the start, everything's fine there. He's going along. This is about a mile and a half in. And so the pain in the, this is Duncan on the right. The pain in the shoe, he describes it as very uncomfortable. It's actually bleeding. I mean, there's this blister, it popped already. It was just, we don't need to get too graphic, but we'll just say it was painful. Okay, so he says, my first thought was to be annoyed because every step, imagine running 3.1 miles, and every step after the first mile is pain, 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 landing on it. However, almost immediately I caught myself and decided I was not going to let, as he said, the stupid material suggestion come in and try to ruin this activity where we were glorifying God. He had been trained with that team to live in the space that Laura talked about last night. I don't know about you, but when she talked about the glory of the divine for Genesis 1, she wasn't talking about it. We were feeling it. I was feeling it. That was the presence of that glory. That's the opportunity that we have, and that's what he was seeking to find. He says, I was feeling strong after the fast start and wasn't going to slow up for error. Just the same, I was not going to also slow up for a friend because a lot of his teammates, it was a really hot day, a lot of his teammates were fading. But they're all working to do the best they can. I knew I had to race this for the team because I knew we had a chance to win the meet, but it would be very close, especially some of the top runners were fading. And here's what's cool. Listen to what the coach did. In the race, the week before, our coach, Chuck, gave us a piece of tape to put on our finger. And it would remind us whenever we felt it to go faster. Can you hand out the tape? Just kidding. You want some tape? Okay. Oh, yeah, reminder. So he said, so this week, instead of focusing on the discomfort, I use my heel as the constant reminder to speed up. Think of the shift that he made. He had to be feeling the glory that Laura is living with us here and that we are feeling. He had to be experiencing that because with the pain, obviously that's going to make you contract and stop, not put any weight. Right. So I went on to pass 3 fading teammates and a bunch of others in the last mile. He said, I finished 5th overall, 3rd in the team, my highest place of the entire season, and they ended up winning the meet by 3 points. So check out, here he is. This is Duncan. This is the last 200 yards. That's him there. So I'm there taking these pictures. Notice the guy in the green. In a very short space, he's beside him. Notice the face. A little bit of focus. Freedom. Those are glory steps. He said, this is why I love running. And there he was getting a little 5th place award afterwards. So, we too, instead of focusing just in the comfort zone, can get in touch with that glory, access that grace, and move into this freedom, this center aisle. So instead of focusing on being just maybe might say decorating our cages or just making the comfort zone more comfortable or just having cool experiences in our cage, we can go beyond our cage. So one way to do that would be to substitute transformation for transportation. So a lot of us just think, because I'm going to a new place, hey, I'm going to be super inspired, and it's going to be amazing, and everything's going to be awesome. That's transportation. Nothing wrong with traveling. I'm not saying, but that's not transformation. It may sort of feel like you're getting a new buzz. They're not mutually exclusive. But I think a lot of us do that. We substitute transportation for transformation. So what if we had our priorities straight? Really are willing to face our stuff and think about it. So here's some questions to think about, to deeply consider in this arena of change. The first one is simply, how do you approach change? I mean, again, my focus today is to be conscious. How do you approach change? How willing are you to progress? How do you leave the old for the new? And what if the new is unknown? Are you still willing to go for it? Like really unknown? Being conscious about these choices are huge. So I mentioned Adyashanti before. His most current book is called Resurrecting Jesus. I think I mentioned it before yesterday. So here's what he said. And I can flip back to these again afterwards if you want to come up on the break. But listen what he said. To change, they, he's speaking to us, first have to let go of everything they know. Piece of cake, right? Everything they know. Their entire sense of who they are. Dang. And here's the hardest one. And their entire sense of who God is. This is where I lose the audience. Wait, I'm not letting go of who God is. God's still God, you're still you. That foundation is there. The opportunity is to experience it in a new way. Infinite, it's infinite. To keep the exploration. He goes on to say, unless they do this, they cannot come up to the order of being that Jesus represents. Huge. Jesus was not hanging out in the same old, same old. That's not what the Christ does. This really reminds me of what we said yesterday, what Paul said, everything, and I do mean everything, connected with that old way of life has to go. So this is really going right at that. So in our metaphysical work, do we take this seriously? The willingness to literally go into the new, the unknown. He goes on to say, to make this transformation, they must be clear. They must know what they want and be willing to step into a completely unknown dimension of consciousness. He knows that it's all good. So it's just this infinite exploration of glory. And they must also be clear about what they are willing to relinquish. This is the line of demarcation. That's what Duncan did in the cross-country meet. He knew he wanted every step of the way for those last 2 miles to run through the pain. He stepped into the unknown. He'd never experienced it at that level, that kind of pain at that level. He was relinquishing the self-limiting thoughts. So if there's something you want to relinquish, is there something? So you can think about that. Is there something that, like a bad habit that may not be working for you? You don't have to tell me, but just in case there is. Is there something blocking your ability to be free, consciously joyous, and literally experience the glory that we experience here and did last night with Laura? Here's one way to begin this unlearning process, but let me warn you, the conditioned mind throws up huge resistance to this, but I'll give it to you anyway. If you have a habit, just in case you have a habit, that you'd like to get rid of, and you want to see why you do it. Why do I keep doing that over and over again? Just don't do it. You're about to overeat? Don't do it. See what comes up. The point is to see what comes up. What's the urge? What's driving it? What's motivating it? Gotta have a smoke, not this audience. But complaining a lot, or I'm always worrying. Just next time you're conscious that you're doing that, just go, wait, no. See what comes up. No, I really want to worry. Why am I worrying? Something's driving it because it's a habit. It keeps coming up. There's something you've buried that's coming up. So just don't do it. That's the edge. This is the willingness to go into that edge, into that space. Urges arise in that space. So what I'm asking us to do, in a sense, is to take a leap into the darkness, into the unknown. So I'm going to give you a little example here of when I did that. Take a leap in darkness into the unknown and see what grace reveals. So it's not just running into the darkness, it's seeing what grace reveals. So Sandy has a fear of heights. And not so much on ladders does he notice this, but more like on really tall buildings or cliffs or bridges, things like that, really high ones. So in 2006, a friend of mine says, wouldn't you like to go skydiving? And I'm just thinking she's nuts. I'm just thinking, no, I would not. What would be the point of that? I mean, I said, what, are you just trying to be a daredevil? She's a good buddy. I can speak like this to her. And she said, I just straight up said, why did you do it? Here's her response. I did it to face a huge fear of heights. Damn. I knew. She had my number. It was planted right there. I was like, seriously? I just talk about this stuff. I don't do it. I actually have to. As my wife reminds me, don't forget, you teach this stuff. Okay? She used to do that. She doesn't do that anymore. We'll get to that story later. So I instantly knew that at some point I'm going to have to face this stuff. And so the seed was planted by grace. So I called one of my best buddies, Michael Booth, and I said to him, at some point, would you like to go skydiving? I can't even get the words out of my mouth. Yes. Dang. But I knew him, so I kind of figured that, and I thought I might need literally a wingman or some support here. So I said, okay, well, we'll do it. So a couple of years later, no avoidance on my part, just little I was hoping he'd forget. He does research in St. Louis area. Here's the 2 skydiving places. What about it? I said, I'll get back to you. I was not going to go into this space with human will. That was not going to be an option. If I'm jumping out of a plane at 13,000 feet, I need to know that it's the divine will that is leading me there. This is not where I felt like I really wanted. I had no desire whatsoever to do this. But I do have a desire to run at the darkness and to face what comes up, and this is what's coming up. I could have just watched the movie and let it go, but Grace is saying, we're going to pay a little attention here. So, for the next 5 days, much of my free time, I kept running into the darkness, facing and embracing the fear, to see what it was there to teach me. I kept surrendering to grace because, as I said, I had literally no desire to skydive. I kept taking dictation over and over again. What do I need to see? What do I need to learn? And what I uncovered, not surprisingly, guess what the fear was? Yep, of dying. It was fear of death. It wasn't just fear of a height. It was fear of dying. And what I saw and what Grace told me is you cannot help people beyond where you've gone. And it didn't mean I needed to die. It meant the part of me that was scared needed to die. Meaning I needed to let go of it. Or as Pema Chodron said, it needed to face annihilation. And so it came clear I need to face this now. Meaning in that point. It also became clear to me at a deeper level that outside circumstances do not and never will determine peace. So after hours and days of deep sort of on my knees listening and surrendering, peace arrived. I knew I was going. I called Michael. I said, how about we go in 11 days? It'll be a Saturday. And he said, yep. Again, just like, yes, okay. All right. So the day arrived. We go to Archway Skydiving in Vandella, Illinois. It took 5 hours of training to do what's called accelerated freefall. This means that we're going to be jumping out at 2.5 miles up. We're not attached to anybody, so it's not the tandem where somebody's on your back. There's a guy on either side holding on to you. So then you get out of the plane together, the 3 of you. You're in freefall for a mile. It takes a minute. Then you pull the ripcord. As soon as they see your chutes coming out, they let go, and you're on your own. You have 1.5 miles to coast down to the place. So Michael went first and loved it. I'm still just like shaking in my boots the entire day. All this prayer, but I'm still just like scared spitless. I mean, it's just like, but I'm walking ahead. I'm still doing it. So what I put together, we'll see if this works, is the video of me getting on the plane, actually jumping out. Doesn't work, you're just going to have to believe me. I'm smiling. How is that possible? They put music to it. I'm going to narrate it because you need to just get the big picture here. We can go a little faster than that. Okay, here we go. He's asking me, so what are you doing? What's it about? I said, I'm going skydiving. I want to taste what's on the other side. You can't see my knees. These are the two guys that we're with. They're going to be one on either side, and we're practicing holding onto the plane. This is a little tiny Cessna plane. It takes 40 minutes for it to go up. So we're sort of practicing. There's the, 25, 30-pound parachute on my back. There's a double parachute in case you don't open it, it will open automatically, which still didn't help. I mean, the fear didn't help. Right. So remember, I don't need to say that. Never mind. Hopefully you didn't read that. I asked your dad. He said it's okay. No, your mom. I actually asked your mom. She said it's okay. Okay, so here we go. We're getting to the plane. It's really late in the day. It's right before sunset. That's one of the guys that's going to be jumping out at me. That's how huge the plane is. That's the door we're actually leaving out of. So here we are. We're taking off. And this was the longest 40 minutes of my life because it takes 40 minutes to go this tiny plane to get up that high. So here we are. We're taking off. This is only halfway up. That's what I felt. Close the door. Thanks for the reminder. I'm actually going out the door. So he's videotaping me saying, how you doing? I'm saying, great. Look at that face. I am so scared. That's like shock. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm really ready. You're going to have to pull me out of this plane, and you'll see what happened. That's exactly what happened. So here we are. We're at 13,000 feet. They open the door. The coach gets out first. The first coach gets out. He's got one side of me. That's him. The little tiny step, you'll see it barely. So he's holding on to that thing. Now, here comes, that's my arm. Watch how hard he has to pull. The other guy's pushing. I'm serious. There's no resistance here, though. That's me getting out, going, seriously? Look at him. Look at the pulling. The other guy is pushing. They're screaming at me. That's my butt. And the video guy is obviously behind us. So we lean forward, he leans back. The video guy lets go, we let go, and there we go. You can see the size of the thing we were on. This is not slow motion. This is actually the speed, because we're all falling together here at up to 120 miles an hour. The video guy gets in front of us. And now we're doing this little check thing. We're falling, again, 120 miles an hour, practicing where is that ripcord. He's saying it's back there, and he's grabbing my hand, showing me where it is, because it's so windy. You don't feel like you're falling. It's just like amazingly windy. And I'm looking at my altimeter, which tells me when I get to 5,500 feet, you'll see my hands go 5-5. That means it's time to pull. That's where 1 mile to go. So it's time to pull. Okay, time to pull. Where is that thing? He's going, there it is. Pull it. Okay, I'll pull it. You guys, they're out of here. I'm stopping. Whoa! I'm still up there. They keep going. That's where we're going, to that little airport over there. This is one of the coaches way down there. The video guy's still up here. Here comes the video guy landing. They have much smaller chutes, so they go much faster. Takes me 8 minutes to get down. 8 minutes for the last mile. So he's landing, sits down, has a Pepsi, and then eventually I come in, and then here I come. This was the best part. It was silent. You're floating. You're gliding. Here I come. I was a little too excited, and they tell you exactly, you have a little radio on, they tell you when to pull the cords, and so I pulled them now. That was a little soon, so we sat down. Instead of a nice stand-up, we sat down. Yeah, and then we chase our chute just to get, look at the face. I'm in shock, literally in shock. It was unbelievable. This was 5 years ago. Thank you. What? Do it again? Yeah. That's when I lost my mohawk. That's good. Oh, you could definitely guide. That's what they were teaching you all the safety things. I mean, can I have an hour and a half here? I'm going to teach them how to skydive. They teach you all the safety things, like how to pull an extra chute and all this stuff that happens, but they teach you literally how to steer, but you've never done it before. But they're saying pull left, pull right, and so they're guiding you. And the last thing they say pull, but I was just a little anxious, so I just pulled too soon. That's why I ended up sitting down. Yes, so I didn't know if the video would work, so I'll just go through these really quickly, and you'll see this is just, Michael took a lot of these photos, except for the ones in the air. So this is just me getting on board. There I go on the plane. Here's getting out of the plane. So the guy is actually taking pictures with his tongue. He's got a clicker in his mouth. Every time he clicks his tongue, it takes a picture, and the video's on his head. So these air ones, he just click, click, click with his tongue, and he's just taking these as we're going. Yeah, yep. I don't know if it's full-time, but they've jumped at least 500 times, each of them, yeah. So here we are, headed down, actually smiling. That's because I knew he was taking a picture. There's the airport. That's where we're going. I'm going to land over there, in theory. Yeah, so there they let go. I'll tell you that. And here I come sort of gliding in. Michael took these. I had the prettiest shoot, so that was cool. I'm into colors, so this was good. And, of course, he gets me falling backwards. Yes. Yep. Yep. So, so many lessons, and I can tell you more about the details because I already got a 1-minute reprimand for going over the first time, so I don't want to go over too much here. But when you're gliding, it's so quiet. It's so peaceful. So I was just taking in the beauty. I was in awe of the beauty that was around me. That wasn't the scary part. The scary part was literally going up in the plane and stepping out. Once you're out, you're focused. You're doing stuff. And then the chute opens, and then that's a big sort of shock because you go from 120 miles an hour to stopping almost. But then there's just this gliding, and the little radio says, okay, you're doing well. And a minute later, it says, pull the left one. And you just pull the left. Good, that's good. They're looking at you through binoculars, sort of guiding you. So the lessons here were so many. The main one that I'm still living in is because I did not overcome my fear of heights. Meaning, if that means it's completely gone. But I did face it and go through it. Huge for me, really huge. I realized that I am not my fear. And that who I am, the authentic divine self, is bigger than any fear. The fear was not there the whole time, especially after I left the plane. But my awareness was there the whole time. So consciousness, what I am, seeing and being, the consciousness of love, always is there. The other thing was, this is the closest I have come to facing my own death, the fear of my own death and the scariness of that. So it literally took away a lot of the scariness. It's also stood me well over the past couple of years because I had the opportunity to sit with 2 of my best friends as they transitioned on to what was next. So I spent months literally sitting with them, and there was no fear. They're just leaving the plane and jumping and going. Yeah, there was no fear. And so we could literally talk about anything, or we could spend a lot of time talking about just being in silence together, just being with each other. We never know how we'll be used by grace. I had no sense that that was what this lesson about as we're starting to do skydiving and things like that. So to date, I've done 7 jumps. We used to do Vision Quest. Actually, both Chestnut and Richard did the Vision Quest, and they've jumped out in the same way. So you want to get some more stories, there's great stories. Chestnut and Richard Booth. Michael did 78 jumps. He big time got into it. This is Michael after his first jump. A little different from my face. This is the glory face. And mine's going, there will be glory. There will be. Yes. There will be glory. It's coming. Just give me a few more decades. Okay, let's look at the mastery cycle here. Dang, Dick, I always get, what's up with that? What am I going to drop out? I think the planning is so good time-wise, but no. So the key with the atrophy cycle is that it's based in incompleteness. That's what we talked about yesterday. And that's why the sense of, I have no worth, I'm not capable, and I don't make a difference. It's a disempowering self-concept. You have this next one as a handout. So this is the mastery cycle. So the idea here is that this is based in wholeness versus incompleteness, in enoughness, in completeness, wholeness, a sense that you got the goods. So Maslow called this growth motivation. The motivation when we're in mastery is to grow and learn and to discover. You wake up in the morning and you say, I'm whole and I'm complete, but I can learn and I can grow. Life's a classroom. That's what the focus is, because it's based on wholeness. So that frees you to focus on the activity and or the other person, not on yourself. So there's an unselfish sense that is born there. So this is an empowering self-concept, because what happens is you get the idea that you actually have worth because you're based in wholeness. You are capable. And you make a difference. Those are gifts from the divine. Those are gifts from God. We have worth because of that relationship. We also have unique potential to make a difference. And we are capable of dealing with life. And we have a sense of purpose, which is what making a difference is all about. When that is established consciously, then that, in a sense, becomes our self-concept or our self-image. It becomes the lens through which we filter our experiences. So what happens is, imagine looking out through that lens, you have perceptions of confidence. Through the incompleteness atrophy lens, it was perceptions of fear and anxiety. Oh no, I'm not sure, what can we do? So I go forward with a sense of confidence. That leads me to have actions that are actually driven by purpose and or vision versus whatever stimulus floats by. So what happens is when the stimulus comes, down here at the bottom, yesterday was stimulus response. Whatever feeling came by, it just drove me. Now you put a space between the stimulus and the response, and you consciously make a choice. Huge. And ideally, it's in alignment with your purpose or your vision. It's listening to your conscience, listening to the divine. In the mastery cycle, results are important. We're conscious of it, but do you remember in atrophy? They were everything. It was my entire focus. Now they're important. Yeah, I'm aware of them and they're important. But what happens is when I get the results, I evaluate through detachment because I am whole and complete here, but let's say the results weren't that good. You ask yourself, what happened? Why did it happen? And what can I learn? That's on your sheet. What happened? Why did it happen? What can I learn? And then you answer with action. So what happens is, when Dick walks up, it's pretty scary. That's a stimulus, but I'm confident. I have perceptions of confidence. I'm whole and complete. I'll use myself as an example. I'm driven by my purpose. I'm going to smack him, but it's okay. Self-discovery. The evaluation space here is self-discovery. So somebody asks you to teach Sunday school, and in this space, because you're working from wholeness, you know, I have worth, I'm capable. It doesn't mean you instantly do it, but that's not the question. The question is my purpose leading me to do that? I'm confident I can learn. So you're driven by that purpose. You look at the results and you evaluate them. It's not evaluating your worth. What you're evaluating is the results. Your son or daughter doesn't call. Same thing. It's not they don't love me. It's my son or daughter didn't call. Period. It's not about me. That's it. I'm capable of dealing with this. I'm clear. I'm confident I can deal with this. What's my purpose? It's to be present. It's to love. It's whatever that is. And the results are what they are. And if need be, evaluate. Okay, maybe I'll call them. But it's not the tension. It's not going this way and going that way, back and forth. You can see how this was applied into the skydiving as well, which I would have gone into, but yeah. All right, so I'll skip the part talking about my marriage, but maybe I can weave that in tomorrow. Talk to Dick if you don't. What? Next year. Okay, yeah, next year. Good. So what I'm going to do is skip ahead to this. Because when I think about grace, I think about God's relentless angels celebrating everyone. And so the song that I want to end with is I've asked one of our angels to actually sing a song called Angel by Sarah McLachlan. So you can go up if you would. So Lola is going to sing this song for us. Oops, that's not the right one. That's the family. Just a second. Yeah, here we go. So, believe it or not, I actually timed this. That's amazing. Please, you laugh too much? It's because I just get myself going and everything. Please open your heart to the words, to the music, but also the place from where it's being sung. We'll have the music up on the stage, but as soon as you're ready, Lola, you can begin. Thank you. Thank you, Lola. Gosh. So these angels, they help us widen our horizons, as does living our purpose, be willing to live as prophets, stepping out of our comfort zones into the unknown, being willing to face your fears and seeing what's on the other side and going through them, and letting the angels bring you into the single eye so you see with the light of Christ, and you see that light in yourself and others. Tomorrow we'll open up what it takes to grow in grace in the space of spiritual awakening. So as you widen your horizon, please remember we're all one family. Thank you.